Due to the lack of understanding, I was in denial that I would suffer from depression.
Hello everyone, welcome to our very first podcast series, the Unheard Stories. I'm Daphne and I'm a coach with the Health and Wellbeing Unit.
And I'm Sophie, I'm organizational psychologist, and both Daphne and I are from the Health and Wellbeing Unit under the Office of the President here at National University of Singapore.
So just as the name of this podcast suggests, we're going to dive deep into real and raw stories that are often kept in the background and not talked about enough. So for every episode, we're going to be inviting different guests to join us for a coffee chat.
Yeah, so we invite you as you are, whether you are commuting in the MRT perhaps or listening to this podcast right now as you're eating your lunch. We invite you to join us to listen, to learn, and be curious about the stories that we hear in our NUS community.
So to kick off our very first episode of the Unheard Stories, we are going to start with a theme that most of us can resonate with, and whether we talk about it openly enough or not, right? So it's mental health awareness.
Yeah, and it's a topic that is surrounded with a lot of shame and stigma, even though there's so much efforts that is being put into place to speak more about it. The truth is, mental health is such an integral part of our lives.
So we are very excited to be inviting our first guest. He courageously wrote in to share with us his story, and we really appreciate that. So we have Sven Peterson. Welcome, Sven. Yeah, so Sven has been with Duke-NUS for 4.5 years as a principal research scientist, and one of his main motivations is to raise awareness for mental health. So over to you, Sven.
Yeah, very quickly. Hello, everyone. My name is Sven Peterson. I'm principal research scientist at Duke-NUS, and I'm very happy to be able to share my story here at this podcast today.
So, I think that, maybe it would be quite fun, perhaps, to kick us started with a question for all of us. You can pick one of it.
Okay, take that one.
Okay, yeah, and you can read it out for us.
Okay, when was the last time you checked in on your mental health? That is not too long time ago, actually. Maybe about 4 weeks ago, I had a counseling session with a psychologist here in Singapore.
Oh, this psychologist, is it from NUS or?
It was recommended from you guys. It's via Intellect. So I first wrote in to you, and then you recommended me back to Intellect, and then I got in contact with them. It had been now about 7 sessions, I think.
Wow.
So approximately there.
What about you, Daphne? When was the last time you checked on your mental health?
I think it was just a couple of days back.
Okay.
I was going through my PMS.
Okay.
Yeah, so during that period, it's just a lot of harsh inner voice. Yeah, so I just have to be a little bit more mindful. Yeah, so just talk to myself more gently and more compassionately.
Okay.
Yeah, how about you?
Because we are kind of in this mental health industry, so it's very evident to all of us. So I would say I do my daily check-ins on my mental health pretty frequently. So I would say probably yesterday. I think today is our very first time recording this podcast. So clearly, so there's a little bit of anxiousness. So yesterday night, I was also kind of running through in my mind, okay, how am I feeling about this? What is my main motivation? And keeping myself in check. Yeah. So yeah, that is the last time I checked on my mental health. Yeah.
So I think that's a great starting point. Yeah. So Sven, when you first wrote in to us, you talk a little bit more about quarter life crisis that you were going through previously. So I'm just wondering, how that season of life looked like for you.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Says it was basically my early 20s when it started, where I did not know what to do with the symptoms I felt. But I clearly became more sad more often for reasons I did not understand. Due to the lack of understanding, general awareness of mental health or depression, I was in denial that I would suffer from depression. It did not cross my mind for the first few years that actually I would be developing depression, especially it has never been really a prevalent topic in my family. No one I know had depression, really. So therefore, it was basically that I increasingly felt sad and did not really figure out why that is.
Yeah, well, it's must have been a really, really difficult time for you.
Yeah, clearly is.
Yeah, it just sounded like it's gloomy days every day. Was it like that for you?
It fluctuated. It was, fortunately, it was not every day. It was a little bit roller coaster is maybe a little bit too much of an expression for it, but it was an up and down. So I had maybe a week or two where I really felt low, but then it was always a time afterwards where I felt rather normal. I did not have these episodes, as many people describe, of being hyper euphoric. I never felt these emotions, but it was just went from normal to really sad for no reason, for no obvious reason. And then I was becoming very normal again, social again. I was able to do my daily things at studies. Yeah, so basically it was a little bit of a roller coaster.
Yeah, and I was just wondering also, like, I guess, like, trying to put myself in your shoe at a point in time, and you mentioned early 20s. It must have felt a lot of confusion going on.
Yes.
Not knowing, like, oh, what is going on? Why am I feeling so sad all of a sudden? And you mentioned earlier on that you can't seem to figure out why.
Correct.
Right? And now is such a great time to talk about it because in hindsight, looking back, you're able to kind of identify some of the symptoms that you
Yes.
experience. So beyond kind of like experiencing moments of low mood, could you kind of identify what other symptoms might you have experienced back then?
By now, obviously, I learned a lot better how to identify whenever I tend to go into these phases. So it never stopped completely. Once I started, in hindsight, once I started to develop depression, it never fully went away. And I still have my episodes where I feel really down. Sometimes it still is completely not obvious for me why I would feel really down at this moment. But I learned a lot about how to identify early symptoms. And very often it starts with me being easily irritable for about things which usually I just shrug off. Whether it's something at home in my private life or something at work. Most of the time, I'm mostly agitated about mistakes I do myself. That triggers me the most when I do silly mistakes. For example, I'm forgetful about something. These little things can trigger me quite reliably. And then usually it starts with being easily irritable, and that's where I notice, hey, something is up. Usually these little things do not irritate me to that level, and where I become careful. And whether I'm careful or not, often enough, it then maybe a day or two later turns into me being just extremely low, in a low mood and really sad and non-responsive, and I withdraw from my environment. That's usually how it develops with me.
And I was just wondering, you shared a little bit about some of the emotional kind of aspects of the symptoms. Were there any like physical symptoms that you experienced back then when you're going through this episode as well?
Back then, yeah, obviously I kind of had little ailments every now and then, which I could not really understand. For example, I had a long-lasting knee pain. I went to 3 different doctors. I even had MRI. No one found anything. These kind of so-called psychosomatic ailments or pains and hurts which you develop. Now, retrospectively, I can tell most likely it was psychosomatic. At that time, I thought maybe I was running too much and these things. So I had these little ailments, but most predominantly, I developed anorexia during that time. I still did not fully figure out which is the hen and which is the egg here. I cannot fully recall which happened first, because obviously everything is very gradual. And I did not become anorexic from one day to another. I did not wake up one morning weighing 20 kilo less. So it was a long journey. And so therefore I cannot fully say, but most likely both events in my life supported each other. It does not help with your mental health if you do not eat well. And I certainly did not eat well.
Did you experience kind of a loss of appetite, things like that?
No, the opposite. I was forcing myself not to eat. It kind of gave me a sense of control about myself. A sense of control which I might have felt a loss of control. And that's basically what a lot of quarter life crisis being defined as. The journey into adulthood for some people can be very challenging because they suddenly have to sort out so many things on their own. They live obviously far away from their hometown, far away from their parents, and then other uncertainties like studies, career development, and then on top of that, also little family issues in my case, they all contributed to me feeling a loss of control about what's happening around me.
Yeah.
I felt a loss because I left so many friends from my school time behind, which was normal, absolutely normal. Everyone did that. However, I just dealt with this differently. So I kind of felt so much loss in my life, and I struggled to find everything back in the place where I was back then. Even though I developed friendships, very valuable friendships, however, I still felt this loss of control. And I think controlling myself in my nutrition, following sick sort of beauty standards, it was maybe giving me some strength in the sense of, okay, I have something I can control, and that's my hunger. It gave me self-confidence, weirdly.
Yeah.
It seems like there were a lot of things that were happening for you at the same time. Did anyone around you actually notice what was happening?
Yeah, that's interesting, but obviously everyone noticed. So my depression probably was not too noticeable to many people because I usually withdraw myself and I just stay at home, or when I am in public, I'm just quiet. And some people obviously ask me, why are you so quiet? And I said, it's just the day or whatever not. Probably my depression itself was less noticeable. But obviously after a certain time, everyone noticed that I lost so much weight. And people were asking me. But usually in that environment of being early, mid-20s, you're among your friends, mostly male friends. You go out for beers, you go to nightclubs and these kind of things. I just tried to live my life, as weird as it was, but I certainly lost so-called friends back then. Quite a few people turned their back towards me, from me, because it's they just couldn't handle with how I became.
And did that make you feel like more alone, like more lonely in a way?
Well, I always had my strong network with my family, meaning my parents and my brother. Fortunately, I had this very strong support system there. I always knew that particularly my mom would always be there, and my brother especially as well. And these friends I lost, more or less, were not really the closest friends anyway. So I think I did not mourn the friendship. I was just really disappointed about it, that people behave as they do. And, obviously, and it did not really help me feeling better about myself. But mostly the strongest feeling was disappointment.
Yeah, I can only imagine how difficult it would have been at that point in time when you were just kind of cruising through your youth in some sense, and your social side of things weren't doing so well when you're really personally struggling on your own. And you shared a little bit about having your family systems in place as very supportive and very strong kind of like core support to you back then. Can you share with us a little bit more about that? Perhaps in terms of how did they help you through your journey when you first experienced some of these symptoms?
Never really mentioned the word depression or what any kind of mental health problems. They never mentioned these words. Probably because it was just not too common, or they were also in denial, or were just hoping this is not happening to my son/brother. But certainly they thought about it. But obviously my mother was the first who openly said what's going on, and she was obviously extremely caring about my nutrition, that I do not eat well, that I make myself sick. And she forwarded me all kind of articles which describe the health effects of malnutrition and these things. To some extent there, my dad also chipped in. But my mom was also very helpful when it comes to mental health, in the sense of trying to give me advice about self-help. She gave me self-help books because my mom was very aware about mental health and how much support you can give yourself.
Wow.
She went through very difficult times herself. As far as I know, she never had a counselor or she never went to psychotherapy, but she sought a lot of help in self-help books. Another stereotype, but she being a very social woman, she had lots of friends to talk to. And so therefore she had a strong support system, and she tried to encourage me to do the same. So in that sense, it helped me a lot. So I always knew when I feel sad, I know I can talk to her. And even though she cannot give me well-educated or professional advice, She will always be compassionate, and that helped me so much. Over the years, I learned that this really helps.
Yes,
Yeah.
totally.
I try to be patient with myself. Yeah, it might sound very stereotypical or a little corny, but I always imagine what the most compassionate person in my life would have said in that moment to me, and that's my mother.
Yeah.
What would she have said if I go to her and explain what's going on in my life? And then I tell that to myself, and usually it does help. Nonetheless, every now and then I still slide into depression. But at least to some extent, it really helps to counter an episode.
It's so helpful, right? Just, hearing that compassionate voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to be aware that you yourself, you deserve compassion as well, even if you do not feel worthy.
Yeah.
And do you think that it was difficult for you back then when you were really experiencing it, or the low mood and the tendency to withdraw from others, to kind of instill that level of compassion for yourself?
Yeah, I had to learn it because mostly my depression is defined by feeling not just sad, but also feeling disappointed about myself, about my achievements, about my abilities. I feel just so low about me as a person, and therefore I do not feel worthy for any compassion. That's basically how it feels. Is the root cause for my depression, that I feel so disappointed about myself. So I do not deserve any kind words
Right.
or any motivational self-speech.
Yeah.
So I had to really acquire that ability to talk kindly to myself and not just dismiss it as something stupid.
Yeah, and it's pretty tough, right? In some sense, because you are, on one hand, really experiencing all the feelings of negativity and the inner critic that is in you, and on the other hand, almost like you have to persuade yourself in some sense and tell yourself that, like, okay, no, this is not who I am. This is how I feel.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that I have to identify myself with it. I am experiencing sadness, but there is something more to it, and I can be a little bit more compassionate about myself.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you experienced some of the symptoms for quite a while, right?
Yes.
How long are we kind of like roughly talking at?
You mean per episode or in total?
No, kind of like perhaps from the point in time when you first kind of noticed something's not going quite right.
Right.
And then you took this period of time to kind of understand, okay, what's really going on, perhaps asking yourself, etc., before you finally decide that, like, okay, I need to do something more about this.
Maybe 2 years or 3 years into my depression, due to my mom motivating me to search professional help. So I went through the list of psychotherapists, and I found, similar to what you guys do, I found at my university a support group which also employed a psychotherapist where students could get, I think, 10 hours for free. That's where I went. I felt extremely awkward going there because for me it just was this idea of going to a psychotherapist was so foreign. Before that, it just never crossed my mind. Anyway, I went there not knowing really what to expect. And unfortunately, it was not a very fruitful experience. The lady counseling me, she was a very friendly person, but I did not feel counseled, if this is a word. She was just listening to me, writing down things, but she never gave me really real feedback. And whenever I went out of the room, I just didn't know what to do with this. I was able to vent, but I didn't get really professional feedback or help. Yeah, at the end, I did not even go to the full 10 sessions. Then I went home again, and it took maybe another year or so that I sought a private psychotherapist. It happened again to be a lady, because there's a long list and there are waiting times and so on. So you basically have to find whoever is available. Her approach was very different, but it did not suit me either at all. She went into trying to understand my childhood and my relationship to my parents, but it was in such a, to me, very obscure role play method, which I just couldn't identify with. Didn't help me either. And I stopped there after a few sessions as well.
Can we just kind of like pause over here and talk a little bit about this? Because I think it's really important that we also bring this out and address when someone, right, especially a youth, for instance, finally pick up the courage, walk into a counseling room.
Yeah, like you know that moment when he decides to
Yeah.
take that courage and
Yeah.
step in. How
Yeah.
was it like?
To hear from your story, which is actually very common, the idea of finding a good therapist fit.
Yeah.
Right, and from your experiences, it was pretty negative, right? The first one felt like she was merely like just listening, but not really, I guess, active listening, reflecting back to you what.
Correct.
Yeah.
I didn't feel understood. It was basically I was talking to
To
a recording,
She was taking notes.
and she was
Did
taking
the-
notes. Yeah.
was she really taking notes or just scribbling and drawing
No
stuff?
idea. But it didn't feel helpful. I just didn't. I thought, okay, now I did that, and there was
What's next?
no positive feedback or whatever.
Yeah, and the second one that you experienced, you mentioned that there was something, she was trying to do something for sure, right? She was
She
trying
did, yeah.
an approach, perhaps looking a little bit more on your upbringing, looking at family systems, trying to piece the puzzle together for
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
But you also did not feel like it was the right.
No, generally I like the idea of going back to the past,
Okay.
trying to figure out what kind of relationships in your life might have formed you in what way. I like the idea. Her approach, however, did not resonate with me at all. She took out some dolls and I had to reenact who is my father, who is my mother, and me as an adult mid-20s, I felt ridiculed. I played along because I really wanted to get help. And I thought, okay, if she is as a professional psychologist suggests this, I really try to play along.
And that was a second experience.
That was
with
my
a
second,
professional.
yeah. But then
Okay.
after 3 sessions or so, I just said, no, I cannot. It's just, I felt ridiculed and I felt ridiculous.
Yeah. Just looking back on your journey, like, is there like an advice like you would give to your younger self, right?
Don't be in denial about your own mental health. Just address the problems you face and be more self-compassionate. Just be kind to yourself and don't be afraid to seek help. There's so much help out there. Just try to seek help. Fortunately, we live in a time that we have so many professional providers for help, so many other avenues where you can basically find support, which did not exist 50, 60, 80 years ago. So we should take advantage of that. That's one of the strongest advice I would give myself.
And I guess it's also kind of like recognizing, right, that the barrier perhaps is within ourselves, and the illusion that the society kind of like paints for us, where we have to power through whatever that we are experiencing.
Yeah.
Right. That the titles that we hold, the identity that we tag ourselves to, the roles that we play,
Yeah.
as a daughter, as a colleague, as a boss, as a manager, right? And it really requires us to take a step back, kind of like ask ourselves, okay, what do I need for myself today? We would highly encourage actually for everyone within the NUS community to make an appointment with our well-being specialist partner, who are equivalent of our clinical and counseling psychologist, to have a very quick one-to-one session to understand where they are at this point in time.
Fortunate,
Yeah.
like at here at NUS here, like we have so many different resources, right? It's not like if this doesn't work out, I can try another one,
Yeah.
and if that doesn't work out, there's always something else. Writing on what you just said, Sophie, the well-being specialist partner, they do like well-being check-ins with their
Yeah.
clients. And just it's just a checkup, like just like you go for a physical health screening, right? So you check in on your mental health, where you are in terms of your health. Yeah. So it's just, like some people might feel worried, like, if I step forward, does it mean that there's something wrong with me?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
actually it's not really the case, right? We all care for our own health.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm just so grateful, when just reflecting on this. Sven, yourself, you're a PSS. Right?
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
peer staff supporter. Tell us a little bit more. Yeah, what was your journey like as a PSS, and what kind of support you offer?
Yeah, with pleasure. So yeah, when I just joined Duke-NUS 4.5 years ago, I saw the advertisement via email to join the PSS, the peer support system, as a peer supporter, and I immediately liked the idea. First of all, due to my own experience, and secondly, being able to actually actively help to change the environment in which I work in, to make it more supportive for people who might be suffering similarly as I did and still do. So therefore, yeah, I volunteered immediately. Fortunately, I have a very supportive boss who also had no hesitation to agree with that. Yeah, ever since my training, I go to follow-up sessions like the PSS circles where we can discuss how we experience being a peer supporter or how we experience being helped. I just enjoy the entire journey. It's not that as soon as I become a peer supporter, that I'm going out on a daily basis and look for people in distress and I hopefully can help. It's not like that. It just gives me even more a little bit of a tool to address certain people if I see them in distress. And it does not only have to be strangers in my work environment. It can be also my desk neighbor or my friend who has been my friend anyway for years. Anyone in your environment can profit from you being a PSS. Yeah, it just helps to give a little bit more friendliness to the work environment. You do not even necessarily have to go through the peer support system training to be a peer supporter. Obviously it helps. Again, it gives you tools to address certain things. But a lot of people, without going through the training, they already are fabulous peer supporters. Just by being empathetic, just by being willing to help. So this is kind of an environment the peer support system encourages, but that doesn't mean we already have a lot of people like that around us. My own experience in these last 4 years almost, I'm peer supporter, is more like daily things where you see people mostly you see they might not feel very happy with certain things, and you're just more encouraged to help. You just have more of a toolkit to respond to certain problems they might have. Yeah. That's basically my own experience as a peer supporter.
And I guess like all this kind of like conversations or support, more often than not, they actually happen more organically.
Yes.
Than to like, okay, let me go and source around and look at who is the PSS or things like that. And whereas if I am a peer staff supporter, I can be having a conversation with you, Daphne, over lunch. And I can check in with you very simply by asking like, hey, you know, Daphne, I realized like last week you've been quite busy with lots and lots of training. How was that like for you, right? And give her the space to talk about it, perhaps discuss a little bit more about her stress if she is experiencing any, and just really opening up the space for her to share. Right. And as you mentioned, kind of like the toolkit that we have as peer staff supporters that we have learned in the training, active listening, what does it really mean to listen well, right? Many people these days, we enjoy talking about ourselves. To listen well is really an art in and of itself.
That's right.
And to go beyond and listen very clearly to like what is not being said. I would say like that would kind of encapsulate more or so of how a peer staff supporter is going around within our community supporting others.
Just very interesting, like recently one of the PSSs shared with me that just by attending that 2-day training, so much has changed for her in her relationship with her personal, in her personal life. Yeah, with the family, you know, with the spouse, just because there's a change in her perspective, right? Just being able to see someone with a lot of empathy, with a lot of compassion and without judgment. Yeah, and that just changed her perspective. Yeah, it's so powerful.
That says a lot about the quality of the training.
Yeah,
Oh, wow, thank you.
and thanks so much for being so active, you know, as a PSS for the past 4 years.
It's absolutely my pleasure.
Yeah.
I'm so happy that I can contribute.
With that.
So thank you very much, Sven, for joining us today, and also, you know, for sharing your story so vulnerably with us. You have given us a glimpse into, you know, what it's like to live with and also to work through mental health challenges. And I'm sure many of the listeners will be able to resonate with that. If there's just like one message, you know, you want to send across, it could just be like a one-liner to crystallize whatever we have talked about today.
Yeah.
What would that be?
Don't be afraid to seek help if you face problems. And also do not be afraid to reach out to people who might be in distress. It's worse not saying anything than saying the wrong thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So therefore, I would not just encourage those people in distress to seek help, but also those people witnessing other people in distress to just offer yourself.
Yeah. To everyone who is listening to this episode, I hope that this episode did strike something within you. If you are going through something at this point in time, do check out our health and well-being resources that we have for you. And we will also provide all the necessary resource and details under this episode notes. And if you like this episode, please share with your colleagues, your peers, and do support us for upcoming ones as well.
Just remember that you are not alone and your story matters too.
With that, that's the end of our first episode.
See you again next month.
Bye.
Bye.